3 years ago, I discussed why you wouldn't survive A Quiet Place's Death Angels, but the whole time I was writing the script, something was just nagging at me. The singular threat of the Death Angels raining down on Earth one day and pretty much wiping out the human populace in an extremely short amount of time was something that became a point of contention for a lot of people, myself included. Giant alien creatures that rely on echolocation to sound out their prey, forcing what's left of mankind to live out silently? As a narrative device and a tool for a film's atmosphere, it works pretty well, minus the sudden loud-ass jump scares that are telegraphed from the silence. But does it work to say something as much as the near extinction of humanity? With a prequel/spin-off movie labeled A Quiet Place Day 1 on the horizon, I figured now would be a good time to do some self-introspection on my own content and a retrospective on the universe in question. This will be my first major retraction ever as I say,
"That does not make sense."
Today, we are discussing why A Quiet Place's apocalypse makes no sense. The hostile aliens indirectly titled the Death Angels are extremely deadly adversaries, don't get me wrong. Surviving the complete destruction of their darkened planet to cling to multiple asteroids in the vacuum of space, only to withstand the impact of falling to Earth, is no small feat. Their conditions from their high-gravity homeworld and brutal environment allowing them to be adorned with nearly impenetrable chitinous armor makes them near impossible to kill, and the violent lifestyle they come from condition them to kill or be killed. Since these extraterrestrial life forms do not hunt or kill for food, they just simply react violently to any noise they can perceive. And that is where these great strengths of theirs immediately fall flat for me and many other people. Labeling them as basically unkillable and forcing what's left of people to not make a sound lest they be cut to ribbons has many flaws to their conquering of Earth. They have been described as perfect evolutionary beings, but why? Sure, they can't be killed easily and are killing machines in their own regard, but how does purely relying on sound for every facet of existence make them perfect? Especially as non-sapient entities. They aren't intelligent, they are not coordinated, they are just animalistic beings that only attack anything that makes noise. That is literally all they do as a species and as a threat. They don't serve any other purpose except to kill. For a horror franchise, sure, that's fine. For a why you wouldn't survive scenario, it's surface level and something you shouldn't think too much about. But there are a few key components to why they would not make an apocalypse level scenario and to why they would be killed before they kill all of us. First off, humanity in most post-apocalyptic scenarios are often portrayed as being quickly overwhelmed and wiped out, saying stuff that we weren't prepared for, and within weeks, months, or even years, would the remnants of man be scraping by day to day against the threat that tore us apart. Yeah, the arrival of the Death Angels via asteroid was completely out of left field, and the death toll preceding from it would tally up pretty quick. But as we see, people were not only able to survive, but ascertain the beasts, study up on them, and even distribute information publicly about them. Print media was apparently able to make newspapers and widely distribute them to discuss various things like people flocking to religious institutions since it was basically the end of days, how the president decreed that the country should enter a quiet fortitude, how the monsters have impenetrable armor, and how one article even just yells at us through printed word, it's sound. People at the beginning of the second film, in the midst of the initial attack, were able to figure out the monsters could not see at all and relied on sound. Yes, the chaos of the sounds of an invasion would have hundreds or even thousands of these beasts going berserk, but it would almost be a wall of noise, and it would cause them to lash out randomly in every direction like an animal that's gone berserk, not perfectly attacking every single person around them with perfect precision. For people that do survive and get to safety, they would quickly know how to survive long-term until a wide-scale retaliation via governmental and military forces would be enacted, which I will definitely get into shortly. Survivors would flock to naturally louder places. No fucking farms and super quiet places and trying to soundproof all the walls and everything. Yeah, soundproofing could work, but I think it would require making noise to establish the antithesis of how you're trying to survive. We do see waterfalls are pretty good places to hide and communicate. If natural sound barriers like waterfalls basically prevent them from attacking you because of constant scattered sound, wouldn't many people have figured that out and flocked to places like that since people, want to live? People would figure that out, not go popping out babies left and right. Not only that, but water in general would work since the beasts cannot swim because they're too heavy and will drown if attempting to go into water. So people would just go to water sources with that idea in mind. People would figure that out quick. People are not dumb when it comes to their own survival. We've done it for thousands of years. It's called natural selection and evolution. We figure shit out. We develop, we evolve. And if there's one thing as a species we have learned to do better than anything else, it is to fuck shit up and destroy. Let's not forget the infamous literal writing on the wall, the dry erase board of what is the weakness? With weakness boxed in to emphasize to the audience that we need to know if something like a creature that relies on sound, that it must have a weakness. Which brings me to the subject of both the Death Angel's durability and our armed and militaristic response. You're gonna sit there with a straight face, John Krasinski, I'm looking at you, and tell me that the natural outer shell of these animals' flesh is impenetrable? Do we realize what the military is capable of in a lot of countries for making full-on penetration? And do you realize what we are not aware of weapon-wise? Or how NASA, when it comes to eventual deep space drilling, since we want to go over how the deep space environment causes this kind of armor, or technology for deep sea drilling, since the deep sea is full of extreme pressure comparable to gravity on other planets, or how many types of ammunition are capable of piercing just about anything we know of. It doesn't matter how much you want to fan fiction this creature's armor to be incapable of being harmed or pierced. Human weaponry does have a way of making fan fiction look like child's play. The writing of making deep space animals impervious to all forms of weaponry we as a species have available, from armor penetrating rounds to frickin' nuclear devices, just sounds like those online arguments of how so-and-so can beat Goku because I like this character. No, you dolt! A hard shell from some fuck-ass dark planet ain't got nothing on an XM 1158 7.62 advanced armor-piercing ADVAP round with a heavy tungsten core penetrator that's able to be produced at close to 25 seconds per bullet. We really wouldn't have to worry about making noise when we are firing hundreds of these rounds per second at them and turning them into minced meat. It doesn't matter how hard they are on the outside, they do have a fleshy interior on the inside anyways. Why not have them open up with some good old-fashioned freedom fries fired at God knows what speed? But firearms and ballistics are not the only methods of killing we have. Chemical weapons, acids, dirty bombs, we have them all, and you're telling me none of those worked? Or does everything we have available just boil down to bullets, fire, and nukes? I realize this is a dig at my typical things I say for why you wouldn't survive scenarios, but it is true. We would throw everything at a sudden threat spilling to all parts of the world. I don't know how it got across all the parts of the world, but that's just the narrative, I guess. Sure, the 12 gauge in the closet ain't gonna do anything against them, but wait till that anthrax held in the Antarctic compound is bioengineered to only affect Death Angels and released. The point being, there's no earthly or unearthly possibility this armor/flesh of theirs would be indestructible. We'd sooner make diamond-tipped bullets before we as a species admit that. We are just too boastful and and we want to survive. This armor of theirs is also apparently so heavy that it prevents them from swimming to the point where they forcibly drown themselves. They die if they attempt to enter water on a planet that is 70% water. Not like those meteors that they came in on were randomly distributed all across the world. Wouldn't they have predominantly just landed in the ocean, and that would have killed off most of the Death Angel population? But who wants to think of staggering possibilities when we can just have yet another apocalypse just start in a major metropolitan area like New York? The fact that they are too heavy to swim would have people figuring that out too, and we'd have encampments of tons of people just making places for safe havens surrounded by trenches of water or going to lakes or rivers or more. But sure, the armor that makes them sink like rocks is just indestructible to everything because it's just that cool and that horrific. Even if that were the case, a deaf girl was able to figure out something apparently no one else was able to. What is the weakness? The weakness to sound-based enemies? Well, it's sound. More specifically, high-pitched frequencies. And I don't know if you knew about this, but those have been used quite frequently in just about every facet of human society. Regan was able to quickly figure out that the high-frequency pitch emitted from her hearing aid, when amplified, was able to not only disorient and debilitate the solitary Death Angel that was approaching her, but caused the armor plating on its head to open up to expose its fleshy innards, allowing them to easily kill the beast with guns and melee weaponry. This simple revelation leads us to tackling the Death Angel's core factor and A Quiet Place's main draw. It's the matter of sound. They only go after what they can hear, and everyone quickly knew that. Newspapers and the media told everyone about that. Everyone was instructed to go quiet. There was even a presidential decree, but everyone instead went quiet because they were dead. Oh, the sound of silence intensifies.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
But with that on everyone's minds, why did we still lose? Surely we could have had a ton of plans, even if the idea of high frequencies against the monster were never figured out. Hell, we could just use loud sounds with sirens and barren empty spaces to just play to draw in Death Angels like they were infected from Left 4 Dead flocking to a pipe bomb. Just something to distract them, make them all go to one place. Maybe placing the sirens on the other side of rivers to have them all just plunk into the water and die? Who knows? They are not as fast as jets or helicopters. Maybe place loud sounds on fast-moving air vehicles to lure them all away would surely also work to allow civilians to escape and survive. They only go after the loudest noise after all, right? They've been shown to completely drop something they are hunting to go after sounds that pique their interest, completely showing they can be easily manipulated and they can easily be distracted. Even if the parts of the world the Death Angels landed in were completely taken over and wiped out quickly, other countries and places would bunker down and research what to do, since they cannot swim, so islands and ocean-locked countries like Australia, who knows? But there are plenty places that are not landlocked. They are completely surrounded by ocean, so they don't have to fear being attacked by Death Angels. Underground bunkers in invaded territories would not be discovered by the monsters, as these foundations simply figured out that high frequencies would be the monster's downfall. This would be discovered at some point because, how would it not be when we're discussing monsters that are killing people that rely completely on sound to find them? High frequency sounds are ultimately the weakness of the Death Angels. High frequency and ultrasonic sound cause them to convulse uncontrollably, become nearly paralyzed, and cause them to open up the plating on their head to get rid of their supposedly impenetrable armor, exposing their insides so that they can be killed by a family with a shotgun and also rudimentary melee weapons. This high frequency sound stops them dead in their tracks when emitted and makes them extremely extremely easy targets. A deaf teenage girl can kill them. Yeah, all it took was a deaf girl to use a hearing device to do it. And the thing is that there are many devices that also produce these kind of frequencies, these ultrasonic sounds. Motor vehicles, electrical devices, industrial machinery, amplifiers, certain types of music, and more. People would have stumbled on this long before they went out and killed every man, woman, and child, supposedly. And even if those that subject the Death Angels to this noise pollution do not have the means to obliterate their sensory organs with direct contact with bullets, weapons, and more, long-term exposure to this sound will ultimately kill them outright because it fries their nervous system. Just keeping the sound on for a long period of time will kill them all. The military does have the means to use pitch frequencies as a part of warfare to win. Using sonic and ultrasonic weapons, or USWs, have been tested numerous times. Even sound cannons like the LRAD or the LRAD, the long-range acoustic device, have been used as a deterrent by police forces against protesters, like the 2009 G20 Pittsburgh Summit. Police in France using handheld versions of the devices to disperse gatherers at parks, or in many general cases, to non-lethally disperse people. Devices like this are still in the arsenal of many police departments, armed forces, and military structures, so it's not like they aren't usable or needed to be constructed. If they are able to be readily used at any time by just simple police forces, even then they can be easily made or procured and attached to something like helicopters and jets to disable monsters in widespread areas long enough for people to fight back. And if you're worried about long-term hearing loss or ear pain or whatever, this frequency doesn't even have to be audible to people, since, we have whistles that can be silent to us but cripple dogs and make them howl in pain. Something to just stop the Death Angels in their tracks. All it would take in the end is someone sending out something like the US Presidential Alert to every phone to play this frequency for the best chance at evenly dispersing this sound to cripple all of the monsters and or kill them. From there, armed battalions of police, civilians, soldiers, and more would periodically comb everywhere to shoot the monsters in their exposed heads. While the numbers are whittled down and more people become aware of the Death Angel's vital flaw, more will come out and fight back. The military could use active devices that may be airdropped via crates in major towns to make sure people can come out and fight back, or rolling armored vehicles with speakers emanating these sounds to find people and bring them to safety while keeping the monsters at bay. It would all be a snowball effect as we easily draw them back, weed them out, and wipe them all out. As time marches on, we will return to normalcy. The monsters will become a thing of the past. LRADs and more of these devices would strategically be placed in large numbers across the world as defenses, kind of like armed turrets, in high population areas to ward off any remaining Death Angels that might be out there. This weakness is super simple to discover, simple to implement, and simple to kill them. It is as simple as that. We just need some loud sounds and deep penetration to win. Giggity giggity, giggity goo. The easiest way to look at it is to compare it to the ending of Mars Attacks. How did it end? Well, a teenager and his grandmother simply played obnoxious, high-pitched music on a stereo as the military followed suit to cause every alien invader's head to explode. That's basically what A Quiet Place did with its one character. This deaf teenager was like, oh, I can do this. John Krasinski, your threat is literally as easy to kill as a Tim Burton spoof movie. Except the aliens in that movie were organized, intelligent, had advanced weaponry, and the means to actually wipe us out. And guess what? They weren't fucking blind, yet they didn't have a post-apocalypse. But these feral blind Deathclaws in A Quiet Place do? Yeah, sure, John. Sure. Maybe A Quiet Place would have worked if it was like a situation like a singular alien landing on a farm, attacking a family, and an EMP caused by its Earthfall wiped out their technology to call for help, this being like an isolated incident. Or if this complete invasion of Earth by the Death Angels was set in pre-technological times like the 1800s or further back, where these frequencies would be harder to attain and use, akin to the Predator movie Prey set in the 1700s. But nah, this just all wouldn't happen, and this apocalypse does not make any sense. That about wraps things up for my largely rushed together rant video on A Quiet Place ahead of the upcoming spin-off film. Do you have complaints about this series and its monsters? Do you not like how harsh I was or what I had to say? Let me know down below. Thanks to my Patreon patrons and YouTube channel members for donating to the channel to keep it going. If you want to be featured on this list here, just send in $1 and you can see my videos up to a week early. And also, thanks to my editor Chago as he goes on vacation for whipping this video together. Until next time, I'm Zackass, aka WowSuch Gaming. Never forget to stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay wow.